There comes a time in every person's life when things seem hopeless, and there's no way out of whatever terrible situation we're experiencing. And as hard as we try and run from our problems, we just run into new ones. Things start to unravel, and before we know it, we're suddenly facing the realization that everything is falling apart. And we're just innocent bystanders, watching it all unfold, powerless to do anything. Like that man who was chased by a tiger. The problem is, tigers are much faster than humans and they tend to be hungry. The man was in big trouble until he spotted a well by the side of the road. He was relieved, sprinted as fast as he could and dropped into the dry well, but he quickly realized his mistake. At the bottom of the well was a big black venomous snake. As he fell, he caught hold of a branch sticking out of the wall before he reached the bottom and clung on for dear life. So there's a tiger waiting for him at the top of the well and a snake at the bottom. A pretty hopeless situation by anyone's standards. Then, to make matters worse, 2 mice appear at a hole in the wall and start chewing on the branch. But as the tiger is reaching in, trying to paw at the man, its hind legs rubbed against the tree, making it shake. There was a beehive among the branches, and honey began to drop into the well. The man stuck out his tongue and managed to catch some delicious, sweet honey. "Ah, that tastes good," he thought to himself and smiled. The end. No, really, this is where the Buddhist story ends. And if you think about it, it's true of real life too. It's not like the movies where the ending is all wrapped up in a neat little bow. Life is always in the process of completion. When the branch has almost been totally destroyed by mice and you are left with the grim realization that whatever you do, you're in trouble. What do you do next? How do you get yourself out of that terrible situation? Just as in our own lives when caught behind a rock and a hard place, with no escape in sight from the dire situation we find ourselves in, how do we proceed? Well, there will always be some honey dripping from somewhere. To be wise is to stick out our tongues and taste it. When there's nothing else to be done, why not? If we are going to die, then we might as well. The man's mood wasn't determined by outside influences, but on his own perception. And this is what forms one of the basic principles for Buddhism. It's not the circumstances that make us feel hopeless, it's the way we perceive them. Thankfully, most of us don't have to worry about tigers and snakes, but most of us have experienced that awful feeling that everything is falling apart. But is it really falling apart? Or is it, in fact, falling into place? One of the foundational Buddhist teachings is the vivid metaphor for the human experience of the 8 worldly winds. These come in 4 pairs: gain and loss, success and failure, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. And unless we engage in spiritual practice, we are doomed to be blown about by these winds. And blown about we are. Sadly, for most of us, these are things that control us and influence how we see the world, our mood, and subsequently, how we live our lives. When we get a promotion, we're happy. If we lose our job, we are depressed. If people listen to and agree with us, we feel acknowledged and accepted. But if we're ignored, we feel frustrated, lonely, and full of self-doubt. Whether we are happy or depressed rests on these external factors, which, like it or not, we have no control over. So if you've ever gone from elated to miserable just like that, don't worry. It's not you, it's us. Humans naturally fluctuate from optimism to pessimism when their emotions are dependent on those outside influences. It makes sense, but it shouldn't be like this. Making ourselves a slave to the universe isn't the answer, and if our mood is determined by external forces alone, especially the ones we can't control, then we're in trouble. We may as well give up all hope and throw ourselves to the snake. For many people, the idea of finding joy at a hopeless time may seem unfathomable, impossible, supernatural, or psychotic. How could anyone, especially facing certain death, find the ability to smile? But look at it this way. If all hope is lost, you may as well take advantage of the situation and dig deep to find something positive. The man in the story didn't let certain death distract him from his present moment. The only thing positive in his situation was the honey falling from above. That was the only positive thing he was offered by the present, so he took it and was grateful. We all have problems, we all face difficulties, some more than others. But how we perceive our difficulties is a personal choice. To deal with these problems, remember that wherever there is suffering, there is happiness. There is always a balance, and you are the boss of your own perspective. You have the choice of wallowing in your pity or seeing the positives and experiencing a far happier existence. Instead of being depressed that you failed an exam, see it as an opportunity to study harder. If you feel stressed at work, be grateful that you have a job and a roof over your head. If your partner leaves you, instead of crying in a pit of despair for days, celebrate your newfound freedom and the chance to reconnect with yourself again. It's not an easy shift to make, but gratitude amongst chaos and turmoil can be very helpful. It brings you to the present moment and you can start to unburden that grief. Buddhist nun and author Pina Chudron wrote, "Things falling apart is a kind of testing and a kind of healing. We think the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem, but the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. They come together and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy." She has a point. We are all searching for that happy ending, imagining that perfect time in our lives where we can truly say we made it, and we can sit back and relax happily ever after, which never comes. Society is to blame. We are sold this lie of happily ever after again and again. From when we were young, watching movies about princesses finding their Prince Charming, to adults being promised the perfect life if we just buy that new phone, follow that new fitness plan, or gain followers on social media. This is the crux of our suffering. Much of our pain originates from this false belief in a happy ending. So we constantly have our dreams and expectations crushed over and over. Life isn't a constant stream of happiness. It doesn't matter if you have a partner, your own business, a big house, and fancy cars. There will always be hardship. Something will always come undone somewhere along the way. Things will find a way to fall apart. The point is, don't run away from the pain, the despair, the hurt. Lean into the feelings. Accept them. And the fact that there will always be low points when you feel there is no solution to your problem. There is no way out. But crucially, remember that there will always be high points too. Whatever goes down must come up, and vice versa. If you feel miserable now, that just means you've been incredibly happy at other times in your life, and those times will come again. Buddhism teaches us to remember that everything is transient. The universe is always in a temporary state, and we have no idea where life, the universe, and change will take us. Everything is uncertain and changing all the time. Nature is a perfect, consistent example of this. Night turns into day, winter turns to spring, trees bloom and then shed their leaves. Everything changes, everything passes. This is the same for those dire situations. When you experience difficulties, don't take them too seriously. They too shall pass, as shall the more positive moments of your life. Just enjoy them fully in the moment. If we want to achieve any semblance of peace in our lives, then we have to accept the simple fact that life comes together and it falls apart again. This is a never-ending cycle that's just part of the human experience. Take back control of your own happiness by focusing on the things you are grateful for when things start to get tough. When you let go of the delusion of a perfect existence and accept life for what it is, messy, unpredictable, and depressing at times, then you can relax and be truly present for what you are living in that very moment. Whenever it feels like your life is falling apart, instead, see it as the natural process to allow your life to fall back into place and have the courage to be fully present for everything you experience.